tears in your eyes. Your head hung down. You told me you lied. But I can see what you've been through.
I'm honestly terrified of what's about to go next, but we'll see. Teenagehood. Whew, I don't know if I'm ready. And on that note, welcome. We're here on W.I.L.D, the podcast, where we dive into what we love doing, and that is having inspiring conversations live on air. I'm Kouprina, and this evening we're joined by Heather A. Davis, survivor, advocate, and founder of Whispers in Harmony, restoring silenced voices through storytelling. While the podcast airs live on Jess TV, 24/7 Roku TV, 101 TV, NCG Television Network, Meta TV, and of course www.jessfm.ca. While the podcast is proudly sponsored by W.I.L.D, a nonprofit with a mission of eradicating domestic violence through storytelling connection, and by providing opportunities for everyone to be heard for free as part of our vision for a better tomorrow. For more information, please visit wildthenonprofit.com. Sponsored by Wild Homes and Gardens Magazine and Borderline, a poetic memoir published by Wild Press, written by me, Kouprina, and available on Amazon CA. Each copy sold helps us further our cause of sharing inspiring stories for free. If you wish to be a guest on W.I.L.D, the podcast, please email us at hello@wildthepodcast.com. And on that note, Heather, welcome. I so appreciate you coming here, sharing your story. I think it's so important for our survivors to connect and share, and hopefully be heard by other survivors and other victims, and be inspired to really heal.
I agree. Thank you. So yeah, most of my life I've been alone. I have a really good family. They've always been really supportive. In fact, they house their kids all the time because Colorado is expensive to live in. And so I was one of those, and I didn't have many friends growing up outside friends. I was just mainly a family person. And so I had been having troubles finding a job, and I decided that, maybe going back to school would be the way, to help me proceed in life. And so when I went and I talked to a counselor, she had decided that it would be a really good path for me to try and write for True Crime magazine. And so she signed me up for journalism and criminal justice. And I ended up excelling at it. It was my third semester there when my advisor told me, he's like, if you're going to keep this up, I'm going to get you into an Ivy League school. And I kind of shrugged it off. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then it kind of felt like a video game, like, okay, well, I guess this is happening, so I might as well go with it. I ended up paying the rest of my schooling with scholarships alone. I didn't have to take any more loans or anything because I did what I needed to do. And they always ask me, they're like, what's your advice? And I'm like, do the work, pay attention to your professors.
Also, that's a sign of a brilliant mind. You excelled beyond just doing the work, and that is something to be so proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And so I graduated summa cum laude, which is the top 1% of your class. And he did push me to get into an Ivy League school. And so I worked really hard filling out applications, getting the letters, doing the proctor exam during COVID. And I called my mentor when I was done because there wasn't a single name on there other than Fauci that I knew. And I'm like, I totally failed this. He's like, nuh-uh, you're going to get into Columbia and you will be editing my book on the way there. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like crying and bawling. Unfortunately, I never did get the chance to tell him I was accepted because he passed away. But I know that he would be super proud. And I think that kind of put me in a funk for the rest of the year because that was the year I graduated. And
Mhm.
I don't know, it was like I was weak, I was already down.
Yeah.
There was COVID and then my mentor passing and having to go without him and his support because he'd been huge for me.
Mhm.
I just was in a funk. And
Yeah.
at the same time, this guy finds me on Facebook, or I found him. I can't remember which way it happened, but I do know that I ignored it 3 times. And then I was in
Mhm.
this ethics for criminal justice class because in his picture, he was dressed in prison scrubs. And I was also in this ethics class for criminal justice, and they're like,
Mhm.
it was right around George Floyd. So it was a big deal, like
Yeah. Yeah.
police officers being held accountable for their actions.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, this guy has a story. And like, that's all I was interested in, is just a story. And so he starts talking to me, and the conversation is just like a natural flow, like we had known each other forever. And we
Mhm.
actually had, because we went to school together from the 1st and 2nd grade, but then his parents pulled him out. And then I didn't see
Well,
him
then there's this
again.
childhood connection too, right? That's
Yeah.
like
Yep.
tightening that bond, like the trust, and like, well, we
Hmm.
knew each other, well, as almost like babies in diapers, right? So
Yep.
there's that security bond that's happening already.
Yep, for sure. And he's a smooth talker. Like this guy, in 2016, he shot a woman in the neck and went to prison for attempted murder. So that's the story. I got the story, but he was really charming and really good at telling a tale of being a victim, you know.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, maybe, maybe he just had a minute, And then like you find out he didn't just have a minute. He had crimes his entire life. Like this guy is just bad all around. But by the time you're in it, it's kind of too late because you're
It's
always
so too
trying to.
late. So
Yep.
too late. And I can completely understand you on this. I've always had a soft spot for the bad boys. I don't know
Hmm.
what I couldn't explain it. I still can't. Maybe it's the trauma I suffered from as a teenager, and it just remained, and I just kind of went with it. But there was just, I can help you, and I can see your beautiful soul, and I can put you on the pedestal, and I can worship you. And can that be so awesome? And that always led me down a very dark path.
Hmm.
So in my own life, I relate with everything you're saying, because my ex-husband, when I met him, well, first of all, I was just completely already down. I was already going down that
Hmm.
path of addiction. It was the summer after college. I was prescribed Klonopin for my anxiety, and I can't really blame the doctor. I went to the doctor, already knew what I was seeking, and I've
Hmm.
already had a history of CPTSD that was already kind of like on me. And so, to get the long story short, doctor gave me the meds, and I started kind of dabbling in other drugs. And this summer, that's when I met him, and it just made sense.
Hmm.
He had the drugs, he had the language. He was always innocent. He was always the victim, and like this was happening to him,
Hmm.
and he came from a wealthy family, but like they were horrible too, and they just didn't understand him, and like it's funny because at that point, even though it was dark for me, I wasn't pursuing him. That was a point in my life when I was not pursuing men.
Right,
Like that
right.
summer, I was on this mission not to, and I didn't even really want to. It was just kind of like, okay, well, here's the drugs, like give it a chance, start the conversation, see how that goes. And so. And then next thing I know, 2 weeks later, I move in with him.
Oh my
You
gosh,
know,
yeah, but it goes so fast, right?
like,
It's crazy. With this one, it was since he just got out of prison for attempted murder, he was pretending that he was an awesome dad to his 2
mhm,
kids. And like he's always been there. It's just been over the phone. And and then he was like, well, and their mom has all these guys over all the time and trying to get them to call them, have them call him daddy. And like he goes on. And then it was probably the first time that no, it was the first time we talked on the phone. He called me to see if he should call Child Protective Services on his ex because her boyfriend was getting after the children. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I wouldn't ask me for advice. You don't even know me, you know? I'm like, I know that in all my pictures on Facebook, you can see that I'm a really good mom, but like that wouldn't make me credible for that. I don't think.
But it's also, I mean, it really sounds like, thinking about it right now, for me, when I hear you say it, to me, it sounds like it was kind of like that victimhood already. Like, look at me, I'm trying to be such a good dad, and
Hmm.
this woman is so bad. And all the women I dated were just horrible. They hurt
Hmm.
me, and I was defending myself and my
Yeah.
children and everything I could do.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was too. And he would talk so harshly about his parents, but then in front of them, it was like he just loved them and they just loved him. And it, and they live in our same neighborhood. They like 2 minutes away. I could walk in 2 minutes to his parents' house. And so it was like, okay, well, they're like kind of the same kind of people. And,
Hmm.
just mistakes happen. But it's crazy to me because it started out with little things, right? Um, there is this guy John that I know. He's an older gentleman, and I'm friends with his daughter. But I always considered him like an uncle,
Hmm.
and he started going through my messages long before I realized that he was. And he found a conversation between me and John. And I used to be the type of person to call everybody sweetie or hun. I
Hmm.
probably still do, actually, but he's like,
I feel
that's
you. Yeah.
flirting. Yeah. And it's just one of those things, you know? And so the first trip we took together was to Lake McConaughey. And he fought with me the entire time we were there about this message where I called John Hun. And
Hmm.
it and that's how any of your vacations go. Holidays, vacations, birthdays, they seek and destroy,
Hmm.
So every single trip was something, and the fights would get violent, and reactive abuse happens on the frequent. And I all the time I'd be trying to protect the kids, right? Because he has
Hmm.
two and I have one, and we're in this hotel, but he would be dragging me up to the room by my arm, and then the kids would have to hear it. And so one time I had locked them out so that they weren't there because I knew it was going to get violent. Like I knew what he was doing.
Hmm.
And I wasn't wrong. And so he knocked me out of the shower and I hit my head on the toilet and I blacked out. And so the kids are sitting outside of the hotel room at the door and they're just hearing all of this. And there was nothing I could do. You know how you try and be calm, but you can only do it for so long,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
before you just break down. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. And so it's slow, and he would bring things up like little itty bitty things. He tried to convince me that I cheated on him before during our relationship when I sent some nudie pictures to guys because we had plans for 2 weeks prior, and I was mad. He decided he was going to do the cabin with his parents and his kids just out of nowhere, like 10 minutes before we were supposed to get together. And so I was mad. I'm like, I don't need this. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
just going to do this. And well, I didn't tell him about it, but it was before we actually got together. Um, After that, I decided that I was going to make plans with my best friend, Jimmy. He had invited me to a dance that they were having in honor of the people their family lost during the year. And I was
Hmm.
like, okay, that'll be fun, and he called not even 5 minutes after we had this planned. And he's like, oh, do you and Georgia want to come up to the cabin? My parents would love to have you. And I'm like, hmm. I'm like, well, now I don't know what I'm going to say because, like, it's crappy to cancel the plans, but I wanted to see if he was legitimate, or if
Yeah.
it was just, because it was just so awkward how quickly he canceled it, and then the timing for when he wanted to schedule it with me.
Hmm.
It's insane. And so, but it was little things like that, like you brush them off. It's weird, but you brush them off.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
while we were there, everything was nice, except for he was going off about my friend Jimmy. um
The
he
jealousy.
Yeah, he didn't like
And
him.
then you feeling
Mhm.
guilty and being like, "But I did something wrong." And it's kind of back at kind of that I don't want to say it's a back and forth. I mean, sometimes it can be back and forth, but that initial kind of really tears you down. And I know for
Mhm.
me, it tears you down. And then I begin to being like, okay, is he doing this? Is he cheating on me then? Because like there's these off things and I don't understand the flow or the game. And why am I playing a game? Because I don't want to be.
Right? That's not what I signed up for.
And so it's just, for me at least, it became completely just codependent. I was
Mhm.
completely just codependent on this person and my own being. I didn't know how to exist without him.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Everything I did was based around him, his
Mhm.
life, his family, nothing to do with mine, or
Right.
there was just complete like seclusion. And even when we would visit my parents and have dinner with them, he wouldn't even talk.
Uh-huh. Yeah, mine too. Mine too.
Just complete, like, just silent. Like,
Mhm. Yep. My parents thought I'd lost my mind. They're
oh
like,
yeah, yeah,
she doesn't usually fight with us. My mom's like, I thought we were really close. I'm like, we are close. And she'd be like, well, I was gone. She would send me text messages and she'd be like, I thought you were my best friend. And I'm like, I am your best friend, because I couldn't see what I was in. Like
hmm.
I knew what he was. I knew he was a narcissist. But there was always
But
that
you're
part
also
of me that was like,
covering it up and trying to make him be this amazing guy that you saw and
mm-hmm,
put on the pedestal, and then you don't want anybody else to. You want everybody else to see that version. And
mm-hmm,
surprisingly, all my friends, my family members, everybody, they did not, even after I talked to them about this, like after it was over, I talked to them and they're like, no, we never thought he was God, like how you did. We didn't
yeah.
see that. It was just weird. I don't.
Yeah, no, no, you're absolutely right. But they made sure to put a wedge in between everything.
Hmm.
And the worst part is like my mom and I, we were so close that it didn't seem like there could be a wedge to be driven, right? And he would just slowly, he's like, why do you and your mom act like that? You can be fighting 1 minute and then you laugh the next. And I'm like, that's just how we've always been. Like,
Hmm.
one of us says something stupid and the other one of us is like, okay, this fight's done. And we start laughing.
Yeah.
Um, and so he was going on and on about how weird that was and how she was sick in her head for that.
Hmm.
And and so like it was just little things of doubt, like things that I put in my brain and look up later to see if he was right. And I never got around to it because he started taking my phone and he wouldn't give it back to me for like the entire night. He was pretending that I was cheating on him and he was looking for the proof to do it that he's sure I deleted. So I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but he had my phone and he was trying to prove that I was cheating on him. And he couldn't,
He
but he
was
was
searching for that evidence. It
yep,
was going to
yep.
come through in those texts like any second. And he just, needed to hang on and prove it.
Yeah, exactly. He would do the stupidest things on there. He'd go into settings and he would come ask me what they were and he'd be a punk about it, but he'd be like, you're lying. You didn't do that. He's like, you did this setting on purpose to hide things from me. And I'm like, okay, you just need to look it up on your own because that's not even something that could happen in reality. They don't work like that.
And that is
Um,
so stressful to deal with, just to
yeah,
be in that and be accused all the time
yeah,
and feeling that guilt. And, sometimes for me at least, it would get in my head and being like, maybe I did. Maybe I
yes,
did it. Did I do
yeah,
this? I don't know if I did or not. And so that I would just believe certain things he would tell me. Like he would steal my medicine and he'd be like, no, you took it. I'm
yeah,
like, but I
yeah.
don't
They're just
remember
like
doing
that.
it.
They're just like that. So mine was kind of worse. As far as the drug, um,
Hmm.
it started with alcohol when we were at Lake McConaughey, which I was really pissed that he was drinking because he was on probation and I was
Right.
the
He should
person
have.
supervising him.
Right.
And the day he got back, he had to do a drug test. So it was like, great, let's just get me in trouble because that's going to help. But then he decided that we needed to smoke crack. There
Mm.
were little things that led up to it. the whole time.
Oh,
But
sure. Yeah.
yeah, we went to Sturgis and he did a bump. I was really mad. They asked me if I wanted one, and I had never done drugs ever. I was scared of what they would do to me, and I didn't like losing myself to the drugs.
Hmm.
And I was already on drugs, like I had pain pills for chronic pain, and I don't sleep, so I had sleeping pills. Like I already had medications. And that being said, in the 10 years that I was seeing my pain specialist, I never once had a dirty drug test. I just was always scared of hard drugs. But
Yeah.
we were in Sturgis, and he had been fighting me and fighting me and fighting me. And I woke up with a migraine that I would call a hospital worthy migraine, because
Hmm.
usually it does put me in the hospital.
Oh yeah, I've had
And
those too.
yeah,
Those
they're
where they start
horrible.
here. Oh,
Uh-huh.
so bad. And then you're just nauseous, you're throwing up, and
Mhm.
sometimes I get delusional. Like, they used to get so
Yeah.
bad, I get delusional,
Yeah. They're
thinking I'm somewhere
horrible.
else. I'm completely not being aware of it at all.
Right?
Like really believing that delusion in the
Mm-hmm.
migraine.
Migraines are horrible,
Oh,
horrible.
horrible, yeah.
And so that whole day, he's like picking and picking and picking and trying to start a fight. Like you could see it. And so he starts this fight, and he runs off with this chick into the car wash. And he comes back later, and we had just went into the trailer, and his friend's like, "Do you want to bump?" I'm like, "No, I don't want to bump. I'm cool, thanks." And I turn around, and when I turn back around to look at him, he was doing a bump, and I was like, "Are you serious right now?" He's like, "Well, you have to call your mom. Do you want to call her drunk?" And I'm like, "No, I really don't," because that had already been a point of contention between
Hmm.
my mother and I, is that I was
Yeah,
drinking, and
yeah.
before I barely would even have a glass of champagne on New Year's. Like I was super responsible. Um, and it's crazy. So I ended up doing a bump, and I called my mom and my kid, and they had no idea. And so
Hmm.
I was like, okay, well, that's okay. And then it was like it was gone, it was fine. But then he started seeking it out. And then he finds enough that he can make crack out of. And he pretends that he doesn't remember how. But I could have no more told you how to make crack than I could make a basketball shot,
Yeah,
around the
that
ring.
I feel that story too. It's just
Right.
really
It's
hits
insane.
around the same things.
Yeah,
For
it's
me,
horrible.
yeah, coke. He loved coke. Like that was his thing. He could get high. He was also in the methadone clinic, and that was the best high he could get, was through
Yeah.
the coke, because heroin wasn't really doing much for him unless like it was a speedball shot. Anyway, so there was this whole coke thing, and for me, anytime I did it, I would have a grand mal seizure. But
Yeah.
but at the same time, I did it just to have that bond with him too, and like
Right.
we were
Yeah.
already in this kind of like thing together, right? This
Mm-hmm.
kind of alcohol drug kind of thing, and like
Mm-hmm.
times I was rescuing him, other times I felt like he was rescuing me, but
Yeah.
not really, because I was always drugged. So it was this weird thing. And then he was always going to get help. His parents would put him in rehab, but I was always just there,
Yeah.
still with the same problems, but nobody said, "Diana, like, can we help you?"
Right. Nobody does it. And they don't even know. That's the sad part, is they have no clue that there is anything wrong with you, because we put on a pretty good show,
Oh
I
yeah.
guess.
Oh
And
yeah.
the worst part is, you don't like in the moment when these are happening, when you're putting on the show, because they teach you not to talk about it.
Hmm.
You don't realize that you're putting on a show. You feel like you're screaming from the top of your lungs, and nobody
Right?
can hear
Like
you.
everybody can see it. Like,
Yeah.
how can you not? But
Yeah.
nobody. Like, I'm just completely normal when I'm completely high off,
Right.
high off my
Right.
ass, completely. And I will use that word because I can't use another word to explain it. And
Right.
nobody's just, am I that amazing at masking is the question. Or
Right.
the other one is they just don't want to.
Yeah,
They
that's
didn't.
true too. That's true. Anytime we were around his friends, it was crazy, because like they seemed the type who would be like, "Hey man, what the hell's your problem?" But no, they got in on it. They always
Mhm.
had their own part to play. So it's just crazy to me how they manipulate other people, and the other people see it time and time and time again, and they don't realize that they're being manipulated. So it's kind of crazy. But
Yeah.
so he gets on this crack thing, and he started smoking crack, and his parents they had ruined my credit because they were forcing us to move out, and I didn't want to move out. Like, I had no plans of that. I had just shot my credit from applying for loans for Columbia, which I didn't go to because of him. So they call me at work one day, and they know I'm busy. They know the busy hours, and I was working for my pain specialist because I couldn't really find a job. And he's like, "Oh, I have this position available," and so I went to work for him. And he pretty much ruined my reputation there. My doctor's not mad at me per se. It's just there was a lot of drama. He would show up and sit in the lobby and be just angry and brooding and putting off these mad fumes, and the patients were scared of him. And then eventually he decided he was going to try and hack into my computer. And I was really glad that Athena, the application we used, had two-factor authentication, and he didn't have my phone to open it. So yeah, I'm like, that could have been a huge deal, because it could have gotten my doctor in trouble. It could have gotten me in trouble. And there was nothing I could do about it, and I had no idea that he was trying to go into my computer until I got that notification. So it was always news to me when he was checking things, because I would be so appalled with myself that I stooped that low. I feel like if I was going to do that, I might as well just break up with you, because I believe you're cheating on me. I'm not going to go through your phone, And so the behavior it was very unsettling. And so his parents ended up buying this house for us. It was really cheap for our neighborhood, which happened to be right across the street from his parents' house, who have cameras everywhere. Anything happens, if the lights are on all night. One night I was really sick, and the bathroom light was on, off and on all night. And in the morning, his mother called me, and she said, "Who was up all partying all night?" And I'm like, "I was sick all night, but nobody was partying." "Is that why the bathroom light was on?" "Yes, that's why the bathroom light was on. What do you want?" And so I didn't want to live there anyway. My kid hated it there. His kids were just, they don't have a good system. And I was just done, He wanted to be smoking crack all the time, and he didn't want me to leave the room. And if I did leave the room, he wanted the kids as friends to tell me that I was a MILF and flirt with me. And it was crazy. It was insane.
Yeah.
He would also...
How did you find yourself? Like, how did you even get that strength to get out? Because that is so much. I feel every word you're saying. I feel like our stories are so intertwined. It could be identical, but again, that is the beauty of surviving a narcissist, because they do have that kind of one personality, or how they go about it, or how you fall into that trap and slowly you begin completely losing yourself and losing your worth, whatever worth you had accumulated from. For me, it was hard because I worked on my worth. I tried to all the time, and I wanted to keep going back to school, but it was just, I couldn't give him up.
Yeah.
Bringing him to school with me, that also didn't work. I tried going to school and sustain that lifestyle, and that didn't work. And it was just,
it's
and
horrible.
that's not a healthy, that already is an abusive relationship. If you have a partner that cannot support you doing well, or help you be like, hey, let's get you clean. Like, I know all these people. I go to this clinic. I go to NA meetings every, Thursday, Friday night. I'm in these NA meetings. How about you come with me?
Yeah.
I never got an invite.
No, me neither.
I was just home in bed waiting for him to come home so we could get high together.
Yeah.
And so
that's exactly how
my life was lived in that bedroom. And so even when I got out, it's been really hard. It was hard for me to learn to live outside of the bedroom.
No kidding. It's funny because I didn't ever have any trouble coming off of the drugs, like not even one withdrawal. But it was hard to be without him, and I would always convince myself. That was
the biggest drug for me. I could do all the others, but for me, it wasn't even me that left him. He left me because he found someone else. Like, that was it. He wanted a threesome, gave him a threesome. He's like, that's my new love. like not to me
Yeah.
anymore. Go away. Go back to your parents' house. I
Yeah.
don't need you anymore.
Yep, that's exactly how they are too. And so after I tried to leave him in February of it would have been 22. Um, and when I left, I left the house. It was the life that we built on drugs and chaos. He would,
Mhm.
he let his daughters have like 14 people over every single night, and he was providing them alcohol, drugs, you name it. And so I was like, I'm getting the hell out of here. I can't do this anymore. And the day I left, he was telling him that he was on the phone with me, but he was not on the phone with me. The girls walked in and found him using one of his toys, and he kicked him out, but whatever. So the next day he's calling me, like frantically calling and calling and calling, and his not sister, he called her his sister, but she's pounding on the door, and I'm like, I am not dealing with these people anymore, like I'm trying to protect myself at this point. And so he calls and he leaves me this message. He's like, that's so fucked up. You couldn't even go and make sure that things were fine at the house because they raided the house today, and I needed you to pick up all the drugs and all the toys. And I'm like, that can't be true. That can't be true. I didn't hear any sirens. I didn't see any cop cars. I'm like, he's got to be lying. And no, he was not lying. Like that actually happened. But he wasn't on the phone with me. And so I, at the time, would have never, ever said that he would have done what the girls were saying he did.
Mhm.
But now, with my eyes wide open, it would not surprise me. So it's horrible because you get these series of crimes that are being committed and you can't turn them in. You're kind of stuck. And
Mhm.
so it was around Valentine's Day that um I had gone back to him for a few days, but on Valentine's Day, uh I had it. I actually snapped and I was legitimately crazy. And he kept making it worse.
Mhm.
Um and he'd take video of it too. And so it was like, dude, what's your problem? And so he had punched me in the chest. And so I grabbed my computer and I walked home. It was snowing and I had no shoes on and I was wearing a
Oh.
tank top. Yeah.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah.
Oh,
And
oh wow.
yeah, it was horrible. And so I'm walking down the road freaking out, saying, I took out the trash. The trash needed taken out and I took it out. And I'm freezing. Fortunately, like I said, it's like a 2-minute walk, but still, there's a woman walking down the
Even
road.
2 minutes barefoot in the snow in a tank top is very, very cold.
Yeah.
Very cold.
Yeah. It was but I don't remember the cold. And it's so funny because when I got home, I'm like, shit, nobody's up. It's like 5 in the morning. And I'm like, I don't know the garage code because they changed it because they didn't want him coming in. And I don't know how, I don't understand it, but all of a sudden it came to me. It was my grandma's birthday. I'm like 0624. Okay. I'm like, yes, the garage door opened. And so I walked into my dad was at the coffee machine. I'm like, dang it. I could have just rang the doorbell. But so I stayed until about March, and in March he won. My I had gotten my kid these tickets for an anime show that we have here called Co-op, usually in about March, the
Mhm.
mid March, and my kid had been cutting himself, and I had attempted suicide, and I was drunk all the time because I didn't want to live anymore. And so there was this day where I had committed suicide. I had taken a bunch of pills, and they they gave me the option to do inpatient, and I said I'd prefer not because then I'm around my dog. But when I got home, my mom came to me and she's like, it's probably best if you don't go with him to that. And it wasn't that I didn't agree. It's
Mhm.
just it just hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
But I agreed. So I said, okay. And then my son showed me his scars. And since I wasn't going, my nephew was going to go because they're really close. Me and him have always been really close. And So I decided that I was going to let him know so that he didn't just, ask, because it could
Yeah.
be cat scratches, and he's very blunt and he has no filter. And so I just wanted to prepare him. And so I sent him a text and I said, "Hey, Sage, George has cut marks on her arm. And if you happen to see them, please don't ask about them. Okay."
Mhm.
And he got really mad. He's like, "How dare you? How dare you think I would do that to a child?" And that was the last straw. I was like, okay. I'm like, nobody understands me anymore. I'm never trying to fight, but I'm always ending up fighting. And I
Mhm.
just don't know what happened to me to make me so unlovable to everybody who was supposed to love me. And
Right.
so I had just gotten my tax returns back, and so I left and we stayed in hotels for about 2 months off of my taxes. And then we lived in storage units. And when we were living in the storage units, they like it when you leave.
Yeah.
So we would have to leave and find a place to park at night. And so he didn't like doing that. He didn't want to be sitting still, because if we were sitting still, the cops might come. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay. So we'd be driving around, but one night we went to do laundry and he's like, "Well, let's drive around this neighborhood." And I'm like, okay. And we're driving in this neighborhood and he's like, "Stop right here." And I'm like, okay. And he didn't tell me what he was doing. He just hopped out of the car and ran into these people's garage and was stealing stuff. And I'm like, "What the hell? What are you doing? Why?" Like, I'm freaking out. Before this, I had not even had a ticket in my life. And I'm like, "Well, shit, if the cops come, I'm screwed too." And so I drove. I drove because I didn't know what else to do. And and then these occurrences were getting more frequent, and he started stealing cars and scrapping them like it was crazy. There was one garage that he went into that had a 2014 Subaru Outback, and it was like new. It was like brand new, and it wasn't actually brand new, but they had taken care of it that way. And it was eventually scrapped too. And so he had told me that he bought this Jeep from this man down in downtown Denver. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like, I was always getting money, and he was getting money sometimes from other things that I had no
Mhm.
idea about. But it so he told me he bought this Jeep, and I looked up the VIN number so many times and it said it was not stolen. And so I took his word for it. And one day we're going down there and it's like to the crack dealers essentially. And so he would back into the 7-Eleven parking lot and I would wait for him. He had left my phone in the car, which I was really excited about because I hadn't been able to talk to my mom that day. And so I sent her a message telling her that things were good, and I talked to her tomorrow, and I put it back on the seat so he wouldn't notice. And I had a physical coloring book and colored pencils, and I went coloring. And all of a sudden, I hear sirens, and I didn't think they were coming for me,
Mhm.
And I glanced out the window in the back just in time to see him come surround the Jeep, and then there was a loud crash, and it sounded like a gunshot. And it was actually a flashlight against the driver's side window. And then I heard it again and it was on my window. And they were like pulling me out of the Jeep and telling me to tell them what happened, why I was in this Jeep, this stolen
Mhm.
Jeep. And I'm like, it's not stolen. I'm like, I checked the VIN number. They're like, it's stolen. And they the lady that arrested me had this attitude because she wasn't supposed to ride with the person she was riding with. She was supposed to come in her squad car.
Mhm.
And so she was in trouble with the detective, and she decided that she was going to actually take me to jail, which she didn't have to. I did have a warrant because an incident in the mall with his daughter, and it was her friend and her, and we went into Target and he stayed out in the car. The reason I had to be there was because the mom had shut her phone off, and she had no way to tell us where she was or when she needed picked up. So I went in and I was grabbing a few things because it was like, I'm here, I might as well. And And so these kids are like following me everywhere. And I'm like, can you just leave me alone and back off? You know? And they they made me so freaking nervous. And so I was like kind of trying to ditch them because like they knew where I was, they'll find me. And all of a sudden we're at the door and there's this lady, and I wasn't trying to steal anything. I might have, because the kids, they were freaking me out. But so I was like, I was trying to call their dad because it was like, I'm not their parent. I'm like, you need to get whoever needs to deal with them, you know? And she's like, get off your phone. And I was like, well, shit, I need to get this guy here because he's her dad, you know? And so I took off, I dropped the bag and I started running across the store so I could get him because that was all I knew to do, you know? And so they had put out a bench warrant for me to come, you know, so I could come and talk to him. And the only reason I couldn't make it was because he wouldn't let me. He would make sure that the car was broken down, that we had no gas, that we had no food, we had no way to get there. So when they arrested me in Denver, it gave them the reason to put me in jail. So before that, I never had a record, and all of a sudden, I had 2 charges, and I'm like, "Are
And
you
all of a sudden
serious?"
you become this almost like a masterminded criminal, right?
Yeah,
Where you're basically almost stealing cars on
yeah,
drugs or all of this, and this guy who's the mastermind criminal is right there kind of weaving that web, and
yeah. You're
you're
just
just
a puppet to them,
you're
you
just a
know.
puppet. Yeah, you're just a puppet. It doesn't matter. You're just
Hmm.
a puppet, and whatever happens to you also doesn't matter because
Hmm.
what? They've already been to prison. They
Yeah.
survived. Like, well, you can't go to prison for
You're
them.
right.
Like,
Yeah, I know it. It's crazy, and it's, with that, you get just so entangled in it, you know. And so when I came out and I finally started getting better, my sister was telling me, she's like, "What he did to you sounds like human trafficking to me." And I'm like, "No, no, no, it's not. It's not." And then you sit there and you think, and on your bad days, your really depressive days, you're like, I need help. I really need help. I mean,
yeah,
you feel that way every single day, but like on those depressed days, you really need help.
yeah,
And so I remembered her saying that, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll call the hotline and see what happens. But I sent them a text, and they were asking for the story, and I'm telling them, and they're like, this is absolutely human trafficking. He coerced you to commit crimes for money that is yours by committing these crimes. So
hmm
it's labor human trafficking. So I mean, that's good. And there's a case filed with the FBI, and you know, I try and keep tabs on what he's doing so I know my safety.
yeah. That is very
Given
important.
time.
Just knowing you're safe. And I
Yeah.
mean, for me, my thing happened 15 years ago. Yeah, I threw everything out in my life, and I'm not gonna really get into that right now because we have such a short time. But I know my healing is still taking
Uh-huh.
so much longer just to really become whole because it's so layered. There's like piece by piece, I'm kind of releasing it. So how did you, in the few minutes we have, how did you find your strength to even be here sharing this story, which is incredible strength?
It was all because I snapped. I was supposed to be at this funeral for his friend's son with his friend without him. And he called over a bar of soap, which he had in several places where he put them. And he called me over 100 times. And so I completely freaked out, and I decided I was going to hitchhike. And I got really lucky that a couple of biker guys who were respectful came on their glorious metal steeds and saved me that day. I did go back that same night so I could break up with him officially, and I did break up with him officially. So it was really just a snap. I had to reach a breaking point, and that was it. I just completely lost it. So
How has your journey been now, finding
it
yourself?
it's been long, but it's been better since March. I have a barrage of diagnoses I could give you from this, but
Oh,
um,
I understand. You
yeah,
know, I absolutely do. And I think any audience
yeah,
who's
yeah,
listening, who's been in similar situations or going
yeah,
through similar situations,
absolutely.
there's just, you know, you even get the diagnosis while you're in therapy. I tried therapy and all of
Mm-hmm.
it. But of course, when I was doing therapy, it was mainly pushed on me for go get your Klonopins, go get the
Yeah.
benzos. Like, how can we
Yeah.
make you look sicker so you can get the right drugs? Because,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
know,
just you're used to it, you know? Yeah, so it's crazy to me. But I stayed going for long enough that he wouldn't be sitting right outside, you know, trying to get me back and torment my kid at the same time. Um, I had to disappear for a while, so I was
yeah,
out of his reach. And so that's what I did. I disappeared for several months until February, and then I finally woke up out of my dissociation. That's the best way I can describe it. And it felt like my world rewinded 10 minutes, and everything that I knew all along came clear, like clear as day. And I was awake and suddenly so much better. Still a lot of work, but much better. You know, I noticed everything that had happened. That's
yeah.
good.
And you're able to release it. So that's
Mhm.
also, you're doing all these amazing things. You founded your company, you're sharing your story, and you're moving on. And I
Yeah.
think that is so amazing. And just even sharing this story, that it is so raw, um, that I know it will resonate with the audience, anyone listening, and whoever's in a similar situation. I would urge anyone in a similar situation, really call the hotlines. I never did. I was too scared, because I thought that I was the bad one. So I never
Mhm.
could ask for help. And I think not asking for help really put me in really stagnant positions where my life
Mhm.
just didn't move forward.
Yeah.
Um, and learning how to ask for help has been really vital.
Yeah,
And it
that's
was,
a very difficult thing to do.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned, just even having that awareness and saying, I'm going to call a hotline, that is so important. I can't
Mhm.
stress enough to have that ability to have someone really say, this is true, validate your feelings to help you
Mhm.
move forward.
Yep, absolutely. And and with this, it's important because, like you said, you didn't know that you weren't the person who was abusing your partner, and that's how
Yeah.
you feel. You know, you don't know why your people don't like you anymore, but you know that they don't like you too because they pretend you abuse them. It's very
Hmm.
confusing. You know.
It is. Yeah. Well, thank you. We're actually out of time, but I appreciate your conversation. I feel like we can do this again. You're welcome anytime to just share how well you've been doing, just your progress, updates, anytime. Whenever you're ready to come back on, we'd love to
Good
have
deal.
you on Wild the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you. I'd be happy to.
Absolutely. And anyone listening, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Please stay safe, fill yourselves up with love, and really, really, truly, in these unprecedented times, take care of one another. Thank you so much and have a great night.
Now you see it's all up to you. You have the heart of a lion. You're stronger than Just calm yourself down.